Hi, I'm Ritchie Patterson, drum tutor from the ICMP in London. I'm joined again by Jane Gregory, who's our resident Alexander technique expert. So, what will we be doing today?
Well, today we're going to show drummers how they can lie down. Right, well, I'll just explain a little bit about the semi-supine position, as we call it, which is just a shortcut for saying lying down on a hard surface with your knees bent. We'll show you more about that in a minute. But basically what the lying down position does for drummers is it really allows them to release tension in the body and to line up the joints. And I thought we'd start by just showing how the joints line up when we stand, because that's the way the body's been designed. It's been designed for all the joints to line up. It's the most ergonomic piece of equipment really in the world.
Okay.
So if we get you standing sideways on, Rich, we can show people how the joints line up. So we're going to start by just getting you sort of nicely kind of aligned. And then I'm just going to point out where all these joints are. So we talked about, in earlier issue, we talked about the joint here where the head and the spine meet. And you can see that one's lining up quite nicely with the shoulder joint, and with the elbow as well, and with the hip joint here, and coming down the body to the knee joint, and onto the ankle joint. You can really see that all those joints are lining up quite nicely. And most people don't stand like this, so they end up doing all kinds of things. And if you can have some bad posture for us, Rich, anything like that, really sort of dodgy, or throwing your hips forward and so on, you can see that nothing's lining up anymore. So lying down each day really gives your body a chance to align again. Okay, well, we've looked at the joints lining up and standing. Let's get you down on this table now, Rich, and show drummers how the joints line up in this semi-supine position. That's it, so head on the books. Lovely. All right, so if you can bring your knees up, please, and obviously that's going to be the only joint now that doesn't line up, but we'll be talking about the knees in a minute. Here we've got the joint of the head, the shoulder, the elbow, the hip, and the ankle. You can see all of those joints again lining up just as when we were standing. So it's a great way of just reminding the brain in lying down that this is what we want to be like when we're standing up. So, right, coming back to the books, we've got a couple of books here under Rich's head, but everyone's different. Not everyone has the same height of books. So this is perfect for Rich, as I say, but what would happen if we put another book underneath here? That's it, and right away we can see that that is just too much for Rich, and there's some tension sort of happening here across the neck. So if you feel that tension, you know you've got too many books. And equally, if we take two books away, and Rich is just down on one, really that's too few for him, and his head is sort of falling backwards, and it won't be comfortable. So be your own guide. You'll know when the number of books is right for you. So we'll just put that back again so you've got the right number of books for you. That's great. How does that feel, Rich?
This is good. How often should we do this, and for how long?
Right, that's a good question. By lying down in this position for 10 or 15 minutes a day, what happens is all of the liquid goes back into the spine, because the spine is basically a hydraulic system, and during the day all of the water is sort of slowly, not all of the water, some of the water is the fluid is coming out of the joints. So by lying in this position just for 10 or 15 minutes a day, all of that's going to repair itself, if you like, go back into the discs and plump them up again, which is great news. So 10 or 15 minutes is great, but if you haven't got time to do this, then it's just as good to do 2 minutes before and 2 minutes after your practice routine. And what that does is, the 2 minutes before is just going to kind of get the nervous system quietened down and get you ready to be more aware as you go to play. And then the few minutes that you do afterwards really just kind of takes all that tension that you've created through playing and lets it kind of just ease out of the body. So even 2 or 3 minutes is a really beneficial thing to do. I'd just like to have a word now about knees. And as you'll notice, the knees are the only thing that aren't lining up with the rest of the body. And that's for a very good reason. By having the knees going up to the ceiling, it really, really rests this part of the back, the lower back, which can be a real problem for drummers. So that's why we have the knees facing up to the ceiling. And a lot of drummers say to me that they find it really difficult to keep them sort of going up to the ceiling. And a little trick for that is to just imagine them on little strings or on little helium balloons, whatever works for you, going up towards the ceiling. So literally you're just getting that feeling as though the knees are floating up towards the ceiling. And that takes a little bit of the drag off of this joint here, the hip joint. Yes, if I move you can see the hip joint moving. So just to round up on that, semi-supine, a fantastic way of just kind of, re-energizing, getting your energy back for playing. Also a fantastic way of quietening down the nervous system. It's also going to help the spine to plump up again. And I could go on forever. There are really so many reasons for doing this semi-supine each day. And in the first few sort of days of doing it, you may not feel much happening, and you might even be thinking to yourself, why am I bothering? But stick with it, because you'll find that after a little while, the body really does start to let go.
Jane, what should drummers think about whilst they're lying down?
Right, yeah, that's a good question. The thing to think about when lying down in this position is to keep it really, really simple. So, for instance, we've seen in previous sessions that the head weighs 10 pounds, and that's a lot. It's a very heavy weight. In fact, let's have a look at that one last time, just as a reminder. There's the weight of your head. So it's a nice idea to just let the head drop onto the books. So just thinking about the weight of the head, dropping the head down onto the books, you'll find that your neck starts to let go. It really does start to release. You can think about the table, or in your case, you'll be on the floor, the drummers at home, the floor coming up underneath you and really, really supporting you. Okay, you can think about your knees going to the ceiling, as we said earlier. And I'll just come over here again to the head. And you can think about the chest widening across. Yeah, this is the perfect position from which to imagine the chest just kind of expanding across into the shoulders. So that's just a few little pointers. And other things may occur to you. Just go with what comes with the flow, But generally speaking, you're keeping it very, very simple and going round and round some of these thoughts. And you'll find that when you stand up again, you're really going to be feeling, quite energized.
Okay, so thanks, Jane. That actually concludes our series on Alexander technique. We're going to continue with ergonomics and drumming next month. I think this Alexander technique concept is so relevant to drummers. It's really helped me out since I started going to Jane for lessons a few months ago. So Jane, is there anything else you want to say before we finish up?
Yeah, I think I'll just finish by saying that if drummers have found some of these tips useful, it really is a good idea to go along and have a one-to-one lesson with a trained Alexander teacher. And there's nothing really like the real thing. It's easy to talk about this and give you lots of tips, but at the end of the day, to have a lesson will kind of bring home some of these ideas and help you with your posture and any tension you might be having, and it'll make you a better drummer. So do check it out.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Shane.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.